You're not lazy, you're not weak, and you're definitely not just tired. But something is off, and you can't quite put your finger on it. You wake up exhausted even after 8 hours of sleep. You used to love your job, your hobbies, your friends, and now it all just feels like noise. You go through the motions every day, but it feels like you're watching your own life from behind a pane of glass. Sound familiar? Here's the thing nobody tells you. Burnout doesn't always look like collapsing on the floor and crying. It doesn't always look like calling in sick or quitting your job in a blaze of glory. Most of the time, burnout is quiet. It sneaks up on you in ways that are so subtle, so easy to rationalize that millions of Americans are walking around completely burned out right now. And they have no idea. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the 9 most overlooked, most ignored hidden signs of mental burnout. And I promise you, by the end of this video, at least one of these is going to hit uncomfortably close to home. Stay with me. Before we dive in, let's get something straight about what burnout actually is, right? Because most people think of it as just being really, really stressed. And that's not quite right. The World Health Organization officially classifies burnout as an occupational phenomenon, a state of chronic stress that has not been successfully managed. It shows up in 3 specific ways: emotional exhaustion, increasing mental distance from your work, and reduced professional efficacy. In plain English, you're running on empty. You've emotionally checked out and you can't perform the way you used to, like, no matter how hard you try. And according to a 2023 Gallup study, over 76% of employees experience burnout on the job at least sometimes. And nearly 28% say they feel burned out very often or always. That's more than 1 in 4 American workers walking around in a state of chronic depletion. The scary part? Most of them are pushing through it, ignoring the warning signs and making it worse. So let's talk about what those warning signs actually look like. Starting with one that almost everyone dismisses. Sign 1. You can't remember the last time you were genuinely excited. Think about the last time you felt genuinely, authentically excited about something, not obligated excitement, like hyping yourself up for a work presentation. Real excitement, the kind that makes your heart beat a little faster. Can you remember it? If you're drawing a blank, or if the memory feels really, really far away, that's a red flag. Psychologists call this anhedonia, the reduced ability to feel pleasure or excitement. And it's one of the earliest emotional hallmarks of burnout. It's not depression, though it can overlap. It's more like your emotional battery is so depleted that even things that used to spark joy just don't anymore. You might tell yourself, I just outgrew that hobby, or I'm more mature now. But be honest with yourself. Did you outgrow it, or did you exhaust yourself out of it? Sign 2. Small decisions feel overwhelming. What do you want for dinner? Which email do you answer first? Should you go to the gym or rest today? These are small decisions, but when you're burned out, they can feel completely paralyzing. This is called decision fatigue on steroids, and it's a direct symptom of a depleted prefrontal cortex. That's the part of your brain responsible for executive function, planning, decision making, impulse control. When you've been running on stress hormones for too long, that region literally becomes less efficient. So you're not indecisive or flaky. Your brain is conserving cognitive resources because it's been operating in crisis mode for so long that it barely has enough left to handle the basics. The telltale sign? You feel enormous relief when someone else makes the decision for you. That relief isn't laziness, it's your nervous system exhaling. Sign 3. You've become weirdly cynical. About everything you used to give people the benefit of the doubt, now you roll your eyes at company emails. You assume the worst. You find yourself making sarcastic comments under your breath constantly, which, yes, and you're not even sure when that started. Cynicism is one of the 3 official diagnostic markers of burnout, and it's one of the most socially camouflaged ones. Because in American culture, being a little cynical reads as smart, as realistic, as not being a naive pushover. But there's a difference between healthy critical thinking and the kind of pervasive, exhausting cynicism that comes from burnout. Burnout cynicism is a defense mechanism. When you're emotionally depleted, detaching emotionally from the things and people around you is your brain's way of protecting what little energy you have left. Ask yourself, are you detaching because you genuinely don't care? Or because caring has started to hurt too much? Sign 4. You're sick all the time headaches, back tension, stomach issues, a cold that just won't quit, brain fog so thick you feel like you're wading through wet concrete. You've probably chalked this up to aging, to seasonal allergies, to not drinking enough water. But here's what's actually happening. Chronic stress, the kind that fuels burnout, floods your body with cortisol, and sustained high cortisol levels directly suppress your immune system. This is your body trying to tell you what your mind keeps ignoring. Research published in the journal Psychosomatic Medicine has found strong correlations between burnout and increased susceptibility to illness, inflammation, and even cardiovascular problems over time. Your body is not separate from your mental state. When one is on fire, the other feels the heat. So, if you've been running to the doctor more than usual or popping Advil like it's a food group, please don't just treat the symptom. Ask yourself what's underneath it. Sign 5. You've started living for the weekend, but the weekend doesn't help. Here's one that's going to sting a little. You spend all week counting down to Saturday. You fantasize about it. And then Saturday arrives, and you sleep until noon, scroll your phone for 3 hours, maybe watch some TV, and by Sunday night, you feel just as depleted as you did on Friday. This is one of the most telling signs of burnout because it reveals that rest isn't actually restoring you. And the reason for that? Passive rest, scrolling, binge watching, numbing out, doesn't replenish the kind of deep cognitive and emotional reserves that burnout drains. Real recovery requires what researchers call psychological detachment, genuinely mentally disconnecting from work stress, combined with mastery experiences, activities that give you a sense of competence and growth, and social connection. If your weekends are just a longer version of your burned out weekdays, you're not recovering, you're idling. Sign 6. You've lost your sense of humor. This one sounds almost too small to matter, but hear me out. Humor requires cognitive flexibility. It requires your brain to hold two contradictory ideas simultaneously and find the absurdity between them. It's actually a fairly sophisticated neurological process. And when your brain is depleted and running in survival mode, it doesn't have the bandwidth for that kind of play. So if you've noticed that things that used to make you laugh don't anymore, if you find yourself sitting stone-faced through things that would have had you cracking up a year ago, that's not you becoming more serious or sophisticated. That's your nervous system under sustained duress. And it matters more than you think. Because humor is also a coping mechanism. When burnout steals your ability to laugh, it also strips one of your key psychological buffers against stress. It becomes a self-reinforcing cycle. Sign 7. You feel resentful, but you can't explain why this one is uncomfortable. Because resentment is an emotion we don't like admitting to. But if you find yourself feeling a low, simmering anger toward your job, your partner, your friends, people you love, things you chose, without being able to clearly articulate why, that's burnout talking. Here's the psychology. Resentment is what happens when we consistently give more than we receive, or more than we have. When you're running on empty and still expected by yourself or others to perform, produce, show up, and be present, resentment is the natural emotional blowback. It often gets misdirected. You snap at your spouse about dishes when you're really furious about being overextended. You feel bitter toward a friend who seems to have it together when what you're really grieving is your own sense of agency. If resentment has taken up residence in your chest, don't just bury it. Follow it back to its source. Sign 8. You've started using escape as a coping strategy. Netflix. Alcohol, scrolling, online shopping, video games until 2 a.m. None of these things are inherently bad, but when they become the primary way you cope with your day, when you can't wind down without them, when you feel vaguely guilty about how much you rely on them, that's a sign worth paying attention to. Escapism and burnout is a form of emotional avoidance. When reality feels relentlessly demanding and your internal resources are tapped out, disappearing into a screen or a substance or a shopping cart provides momentary relief from the pressure. The problem is that it doesn't address the underlying depletion, it just delays it. And over time, what starts as a harmless way to decompress can quietly solidify into dependency. Burnout creates the wound. Escapism keeps you from treating it. Ask yourself honestly, are you resting or are you hiding? Sign 9. You've stopped imagining a different future. This might be the most quietly devastating sign of all. When you're healthy and engaged with life, you have an ongoing internal narrative about your future. Plans, dreams, ideas, even vague ones. One day I want to travel here. I'd love to start that project. Imagine if I, when burnout sets in deeply, that narrative goes quiet. You stop making plans because making plans requires hope, and hope requires energy. You stop dreaming because dreaming requires a belief that the future could be different from right now. And when you're burned out, the future just looks like an endless extension of today, relentless, gray, and heavy. If you've noticed that you've stopped imagining, stopped planning, stopped feeling like anything could genuinely be different, like, please take that seriously. That's not realism. That's depletion, masquerading as wisdom. What to do about it, okay? So now you know. Maybe one of those signs landed, maybe all 9 did. What now? First, recognition is not failure. Seeing clearly what's happening to you is the first act of self care. Don't use this information to beat yourself up. Use it as a compass. Second, understand that you cannot hustle your way out of burnout. Rest is not a reward for productivity, it is a biological necessity. You need to give your nervous system genuine recovery time, not passive numbing, but real rest. Sleep, nature, connection, play. Third, and I cannot emphasize this enough, please talk to someone, a therapist, a counselor, a trusted doctor. Burnout that goes unaddressed doesn't just plateau, it deepens. The earlier you intervene, the faster and more fully you recover. And finally, start small. You don't have to overhaul your entire life this week. Pick one thing from this list that resonated most and give it your honest attention. One honest conversation, one boundary drawn, one evening without your phone. Recovery from burnout is not a sprint. It's a slow, deliberate walk back toward yourself. If this video hit home for you, I want you to do one thing. Drop a comment below and tell me which of these 9 signs you recognized in yourself. No judgment. This is a safe space. And honestly, just naming it out loud is a powerful first step. If you found this helpful, share it with someone you care about. Burnout thrives in silence and in the idea that we're supposed to just handle it. Let's change that conversation. Like this video, subscribe if you're new here, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourself. Genuinely, I crime this week. Don't forget subscribe, like the video, and turn on notifications.